This is just a nice review on the female anatomy. And I call it a review because I'm going to assume that you know. But I'm also going to review it because I know a lot of you don't know, and some of you are pretending to know, and some of you are very clear that you don't know. So this is why this conversation becomes important. So here I have on the screen a picture or a medical image of a vulva. And what we're seeing here is, remember, and I think a lot of people get this wrong, we have a number of orifices here that you want to be able to identify, right? So, of course, this area here is considered the vagina. And that's actually where, if there's going to be penetrative sex, that's where penetration would happen. This is also the area where blood comes from when a young lady is menstruating. But then I also want to point out here that we have another orifice here, and this is called the urethra. So you have a urethra and she has a urethra. See that little hole right there? And the urethra is where urine comes out in both men and women. So the urethra is, as you can imagine, connected to the bladder. And as the urethra comes out, that's where the urine is coming from. So it's coming from the bladder, and then it's coming all the way out. So what I want you to be mindful of is, your urethra runs through the course of your penile tissue, and her urethra is just going to run through. And let me show you this so you can see this picture. Share this. So remember how I just demonstrated to you that we've got a bladder. So on the right, you see men's anatomy. And on the left, you see female anatomy. Let me call it male and female before I get into any type of trouble here. And what I want to point out to you is that this area here is the prostate on the gentleman. And this area right here is the paraurethral tissue, or the glands in the lady. So when they take these glands and look at them underneath the microscope, these little small glands that I'm coloring in right here look underneath the microscope exactly like the glands of the prostate. So, of course, you're thinking, well, I mean, how can that be? Men and women are so different. What I want to remind you of, though, is that when male and female embryos are in the body, okay, let me show you this one. The tissue is what we call undifferentiated. So this is kind of 4 to 6 weeks of the anatomy here. Let's see, let me edit this so I can show you this. This is how we all started out up here. Okay, so as it differentiates into female, it basically kind of stays the same. That little yellow part on the top actually becomes her clitoris. That yellow part on the male actually becomes the glands of the penis, right? And the green area in the male actually starts to close up, right, and form the penis. The green part on a female actually starts to form the labia minora. So as you can see, it's very clear here that it started out the same and it differentiated. That is how we ultimately end up with the clitoral tissue. The clitoris, remember how I said that the clitoris actually gets morning wood too? Sitting at the top here. How you can actually get engorgement in this tissue, but this is also why I have to remind you that the clitoris is not just a button on the top there. The clitoris actually, as you can imagine, dips down into the walls of the vagina. This is why pressure on the outside feels so good to ladies. This is why pressure on the inside of the walls feels so good, because the clitoris actually dips down into there. The clitoris is actually shaped more like a wishbone than a button. And all these years they've been calling it a button, right? So with that being said, how does it happen then that this is prostate tissue? So if you remember what I've been saying about the health of the prostate and why the prostate is so important in the ejaculatory response, the prostate is responsible for for not just putting a little extra bit of fluid into the ejaculate as it comes out, but it's also responsible for that trigger and snap for the explosion, right? So when it comes to a female genitalia, I want to show you this picture. This picture actually demonstrates if we were to peel back the layers and just have pelvis here, right? So this is her pelvis bone, and this would be as if the female model or the cadaver is actually laying on their back with their legs up in the air, right? So just to kind of give you a little frame of reference, let me get my pen here. Just to give you a little frame of reference, I'm going to use red. This is the clitoris up here. See here how the clitoris actually kind of dips through. We also see part of the clitoris here. This is that area that I was talking about, how it dips down and is actually along the walls of the vagina, right? So that's here. But also, when we're talking about the periurethral glands and what is actually going to be implicated in this ejaculatory response, is now we're talking about this area right here. So this is why when anyone's talking about a female G-spot, they're actually telling you to go in and up, stroke in and up, instead of just going in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out. Because actually, when we're talking about stimulating her G-spot, it's actually where the periurethral glands are, which is kind of on the roof of the vagina, so to speak. So when you're thinking about, if you think about the inside almost like a cave or a tunnel, you want to be angling upwards, not just jabbing upwards, but smoothly gliding upwards over things, so that the idea then becomes not just that you are hitting the roof, but you're also hitting the sides where that vestibular bulb or the clitoral fibers actually go down deep into. So you cannot think about female anatomy and think of the clitoris as just a little button on the outside. You have to know that it dips down inside the canal, and that the part considered the G-spot is what you have to stimulate if you want to stimulate the periurethral glands so that you can actually have someone squirting or ejaculating when you guys are having sex together. Or if it's a lady watching this, or if you happen to be masturbating. The key is to kind of angle things upwards, gliding upwards, so that you can have that ejaculatory response, right? Okay, what does the vestibular bulb do? So the vestibular bulb is basically a clinical term for the different parts of the clitoris. So if I can here, if I'm going to just kind of sketch one out for you. If I was going to sketch out a clitoris here, we would make it look like this. And I will show you where the vestibular bulb is on here. So this is the part everybody sees and knows and loves. And then you have the parts that hang down like this. And that is actually clinically called the vestibular bulb. And that is actually the walls. It really kind of makes up the walls of the internal part of the vagina. That's why, if you get a little creative with it, angle to the left a little bit, angle to the right a little bit, that's why it actually feels really good. And that's also why pressure on the perineum, by good old fashioned bumping and grinding, back in the day when you guys were kids and you could make your girl come just off of just grinding while you're dancing, that's why, because the clitoral fibers actually, not just the clitoris on top, but the clitoris actually is almost like when you're looking at the vagina, you're looking at the vulva, like let's see, like when you see this, let me see, where is that picture? When you see this is why pressure here feels so good to ladies, because remember, The fibers are all in here. So if the fibers are all in here, it makes sense that pressure here feels good. So that is also why women have a hard time coming in missionary. So you're trying, you're doing everything possible to get her to come missionary. You're like, dang. And she's like, well, just use this. And she gives you a vibrator. Or she says, just use your mouth, you know. What's happening there is because when there's not enough pressure on this area, on here, you know, pressure here as you're rubbing, you know, so what you want to do is change your angle and make it so that not just are you penetrating differently, but you actually want to try to have your pubic bone or your pubic hair kind of rub against her mound, because those fibers are all embedded down there. And that's actually why penetrative sex can feel so good, is because the clitoral fibers are actually spread out and all through there. And there's been a lot of controversy because up until recently, even in our clinical textbooks in medical school, they really weren't teaching us that the clitoris was going down deep like that. So that when surgeons were doing surgeries and things, they were actually disrupting clitoral fibers because they didn't really even recognize that that was part of the clitoris. So you want to be above and beyond what's taught. And you want to know that the clitoris dives deep into that tissue and that the bulb is an extension of that. And actually, the names of all this stuff are very similar too, because we have a bulb of the penis, right? The bulb of the penis is basically an area that, like if I'm doing shockwave clinically, I make sure I hit the bulb of the penis. It's almost like the root of the penis. You know, and that's a very important part to treat when you're doing shockwave too, because you're worried there about the strength of the muscle, the bulbal spongiosum, that's responsible to help keeping things erect and upright. It's great, good question.